Hello, everyone. Welcome to our next Changemakers episode. I could not be more excited than to welcome my good friend and colleague, Patty Beach, founder of LeadershipSmarts and author of the best-selling book, The Art of Alignment. Welcome this morning, Patty, to our program.
Kim, it's really exciting to be here with you today.
So I just want to jump right in. There's a lot to cover. I've been so impressed with Patty over the years. We've been in programs together. I've seen her company rise and the tools that she brings through her LeadershipSmarts organization and the book, The Art of Alignment. So Patty, why don't you share with our listeners a bit about yourself and a few insights into your professional journey?
Yeah, so I am an executive coach and a leadership development expert. I like to call myself an inclusive leadership evolutionist. I used to call myself an evangelist because I believe in it so wholeheartedly. But now I'm calling myself an evolutionist because I feel like that's not moving fast enough. And I want to bring tools to the table that help leaders really step into that frame of mind, which is totally a paradigm shift from the patriarchal system we've come from, so that we can step into the new way of leading that so many people are so eager to have.
That is phenomenal. So I want to find out more about this art of alignment. So share with us, what is alignment coaching and how does it transform leaders and teams so quickly?
Yeah, so one of the things about alignment coaching is our coaches really believe that basically every voice matters, and together we really can solve problems. And so we believe in leadership that comes from that philosophy. It believes that instead of selling and telling and negotiation and all trading cards, that we can work in a generative, co-creative manner such that we're leading together. Now, that doesn't mean that a leader doesn't step in front and support the group in making that happen or have their own ideas, but the leaders that we work with come from this belief that they don't know it all. They need to work with other people, tap into the talent that's in the organization, and truly engage everyone. So that's our alignment coaches they bring a lot of tools to the table to make that a practical reality. So it's not just a conceptual framework, it is set up such that it's more efficient, it's effective, sound decisions are made, bad decisions are eliminated, people are able to maintain their lines of authority. Meanwhile, they're able to work in an inclusive manner. So it's a very practical approach to inclusive leadership. You might call it practical inclusion or practical idealism, those kind of things, right?
Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about the types of companies that you work with. I mean, is there the profile of an ideal client, company / team that would be a great fit for your
alignment?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I actually like to say I'm kind of like the Switzerland of coaches, and that I worked in every industry. I worked in big companies like STEM, like Boeing, Cisco, Microsoft, a lot of those kind of companies you would have heard of that are in tech. I've worked in healthcare, hospitals. I've worked with biotech. I've worked with the funeral industry. I've worked with journalism. I've worked with schools and universities and government agencies. Right now, I'm working with a rocket company, for example. So it's actually a useful modality in almost any industry. I personally come from oil and gas, and I have a background as an earth scientist. So I'm very interested in working with people in STEM professions, because I feel like the STEM professions are the places where they're needing to break out of that male-dominated frame of mind, right? They know, well, they came from the male-dominated frame of mind because most of those businesses were brought up by engineers, maybe even military people who went into the civilian life. And they love having the structure and organization, evidence, data, logic, etc. But meanwhile, they're realizing that they need more of some of the archetypally feminine modalities of nurturing, listening, empathy, etc. And they're wanting to learn how to move in that direction. So that audience tends to really resonate with the work that I'm doing. Meanwhile, it also works for environments that are female dominated, like education, where you have a lot of women in that industry, or nursing, for example, or healthcare or nonprofits. They kind of need to go the opposite direction, where they may sometimes be operating in a way that's a little bit too organic and they get a little lost and they have trouble making decisions, or they end up with a very emotional kind of frame of mind, they need a little more structure. So what's nice about the alignment methodology that I've developed is it is what I call versatile methodology. What does versatile mean? Well, first of all, the word versa means to turn. And so when you are working in alignment, you turn from masculine to feminine. It's almost like a very balanced approach according to what's needed, and so that's one of the principles of alignment, is that we would create versatile leadership that has both a strong masculine element and a strong feminine element in balance. What that means is it tends to appeal to both the male and female audience, or people really of any gender identity. Right now, a lot of people are calling themselves not so binary, that's one of the things. So it's really it's not exactly a binary model, because it allows you to flex and move between these different modalities according to what you need, whether you're male, female, no matter what your gender identity. So it's designed to be in a more modern frame of mind than where we've traditionally come from.
It sounds so incredibly transformational, and how it can be applied, through teams or through entire organizations. What have you seen? I mean, you obviously addressed many, many different industries, but what does success look like once your program is?
I'll have to tell you that quite recently we've had some really big successes, not just for myself, but for people who've gone into alignment coaching and are bringing this methodology to their clients. And as one person had described, that their client was finding disillusioned, like their team, when they interviewed them, were feeling like hopeless, frustrated. They couldn't make decisions. They were being asked more of them than they actually could deliver. Their energy was scattered. So they were disillusioned, disengaged, siloed. So the different groups were siloed and they weren't working together, frustrated, and really had kind of lost their hope and optimism. So then what happened is we brought the principles and practices of alignment to them in a 2 or 3 day workshop, which is not very long, and had them use it to solve some of their real problems, like some of the places where they were stuck. So as an example, I was using with a client that they had 10 initiatives they're trying to pursue. That's a lot for a leadership team. There was a leadership team, 14 people, 10 initiatives, and they couldn't succeed in any of them because there were just too many. They couldn't focus on them. They didn't have time to talk about them in the meetings, et cetera. So we used the practice of alignment to narrow the 10 down to 5. And as you can imagine, narrowing is pretty hard. I mean, brainstorming is easy. You come up with a lot of ideas, but to get more narrow and more aligned around a few things is actually pretty dicey in a political environment where you have senior level leaders. They're all kind of like trying to elbow in for their part, right? But what we found was when they used the principles, practice of alignment, they were able to make those decisions and rally around each other and decide what things they were going to put off for later and lean into the 5 things and starting to succeed with those things. Then they took that plan up to the senior leaders and they aligned with them. And they even took it out to their clients and said, okay, we had clients we were going to deliver these things to. Now we need to renegotiate those things with the clients. So they used alignment to do that. So what we saw was they moved from being this kind of splintered, frustrated, victimed, we're the victim of the corporate making us do all this stuff we can't do, to being empowered and being really a cohesive team that had the competency to make decisions and to include everyone in it in a really meaningful way.
Wow, that's transformational. That's very powerful.
Yeah,
I'm sure it was very very gratifying for you and your team.
It is. I'll tell you, I was just in a session and last Monday, and this guy said, well, I don't really believe in this stuff, but we've been doing it and I just can't argue with the results. We're here where we are now. We can't even believe it. Wow. So that was really exciting to see. And I had another guy who was telling me that. I said, well, tell me how this is going. And he says, well, I don't really believe in consultants because they come in and they put their solution on you and then they leave and then you're stuck with it. You don't like it, et cetera. And he said, but we have just transformed. And the hardest thing about this is for me to believe it, because I've been in my career for 35 years and I've never seen a team make this kind of transformation in such a short period of time.
Wow.
So I think it's kind of funny. I'm like, well, okay, I don't know how to solve that problem. Sorry, we transformed too fast. I guess we'll just have to see how that goes. But, I have seen that where I go back a year later with groups that I work with, and they're stronger a year later. I mean, where they've struggled and they're like, they're having to learn the principles by applying it over and over again and starting to get confidence. We really see them come together.
Wow.
So it's very exciting.
Well, and then you have that moving forward. I mean, that's working for you moving forward, getting
Oh,
those
yeah.
client testimonials and, making believers out of skeptics, which, there's no shortage of as far as
Yeah.
skeptics
I was going to say one other thing that I feel, is important is that because alignment is set up where there's these memorable success formulas, the book is chock full. And these actually work really great. Like in engineering organizations, they're like, oh, this plus this plus this equals this, woo, and they can remember it. And I'll give you an example, one of those formulas later. But what we see is that we go in and we teach them, and they use this modality to solve their problems. And then it stays with them because it's so easy to remember and it's so easy to teach. So, for example, we did a 3-day workshop. The workshop started at 10 instead of 8 or whatever it was, because there was homework to do and they needed to do the homework in the morning. And one of the guys had gone and started using Light with his team after a day and a half.
Wow.
He was so fired up about it. So that was really exciting to see too. It was like, yeah, my team already knows how to use this. We've already used it to solve a problem. That was between 8 and 10. And he just learned it the day before, which was crazy, right? Yeah. So that was very exciting to see.
Very powerful, very powerful. Well, in your book, there's something that I know that is also equally powerful, and I've heard you speak about it before, but I would love for you to describe to our listeners what the Shuva approach is and how applying it can lead to transformational change making, which is what is near and dear to our heart in the space that we occupy.
Shuva is a very transformational concept. So basically, in alignment, we have 3 principles, 4 steps, and 5 C's. So it's a 3-4-5 framework. Again, easy to remember, 3-4-5. Shuva is one of the 3 principles of alignment, and it is absolutely fundamental to alignment, but actually it's fundamental to living life in a really rich and full way. So what Shuva is an acronym which stands for the 5 universal needs that everyone has, which is the need to be seen, heard, understood, valued, and appreciated. Seen, heard, understood, valued, and appreciated. So there are 5 universal needs, but it's also 5 verbs. I can see you, I can hear you, I can understand you, I can value you, I can appreciate you. And so what's kind of cool about Shuva is that when you're a leader or you're a team and you give Shuva to each other, you see each other, you hear each other, you understand value, etc., and you receive it, then what you see is that alignment follows naturally. Like, we can't have alignment if I don't understand you, or we can't have alignment if I don't see you. I mean, how many women, we know this is your audience, right? These changemaker women who want to have an impact and have an influence, and these companies make such an effort to hire them and bring them in. But are they in the meeting? Are they in the room when it happens? Not all the time. So we got to start off, how do I see that person? How do they make sure they turn on the videos, for example, in their Zoom meetings? And then here, are we making sure that we're sharing, balancing participation? And then actually, as we hear, are we listening to understand that person's frame of mind, knowing that what I understand may not be what you understand? And then valuing is about putting aside my own judgment enough to let your idea inform my judgment. So when I do that, then, you actually have an opportunity to influence me. That's what we want to see. And then appreciation, whether I agree with you or not, can I appreciate you for bringing your energy to the room? And so what you see is when you have a team that's a Shuva team, they're just on fire because they're constantly picking up ideas from each other, and they're constantly reinforcing the things that are great. And they're creating that psychological safety on the team for you to be who you are. Even your wacky idea is welcome, because we need wacky ideas instead of, let's have prop up the senior leader and let them tell us all what to do, and Shuva that person because they're the leader, as opposed to, no, it's like sunshine all around, and so it's very powerful. I'm seeing teams that are adopting the Shuva principle. And they're using phrases like, I Shuva you, or I need a little Shuva right now. Here's another one. They say like, a Shuva a day makes the conflict go away. Or, us, get on the Shuva bus instead of the struggle bus or whatever it is, So there's all of these really fun little phrases. I hope your podcast is okay to say one of my phrases is that the most important things that our alignment coaches do is to Shuva the shit out of our clients, right? And basically that means we're just going to love them up enough that whatever it is that's in their way will just drop out the other side, right? And
that's great.
I always say that's the number one thing that I'm going to teach you. Just, this is your job. If you're not doing that, you're not a good alignment coach, right? So it's part of the modality of helping people learn how to help leaders hear themselves, believe themselves. Another important thing is to Shuva yourself. I get up in the morning and I start by Shuvaing my feet, and I think, oh man, these feet have walked across miles and miles and miles, and they're only my feet can bring my work into the world, and then I just work my way up, and you can Shuva your food. So it's one of these amazing kind of things that is so transformational, yet so simple. The other thing I like to say about Shuva is I call it love through the logic door. So what we're seeing right now is post Me Too movement in companies. You can't really talk about love in the workplace because it gets all confused with, inappropriate behavior and stuff like that, and of course, we want love. Everybody wants love. That's something we don't want to wipe out of our world or our professional world. And it's dumb for it to be separate. Love is one of the most powerful forces in the world. But Shuva is kind of a more practical, I don't want to say replacement, but like, what do you call it when it's the same, like a synonym, basically, right? And for the logical mind, it tells them what to do. Like a lot of times we talk about empathetic leadership and how important it is. Well, I have worked with leaders that have Asperger's, like CEO seriously has Asperger's. Mm-hmm. And he is like a little checklist. Okay, am I Shuvaing this person? Am I seeing them? Am I hearing them? I'm standing there. And what we see is that it works, even if you're doing it mechanically. It's a very powerful modality. So anyway, I'm finding that Shuva is one of the free gifts inside with alignment, like the popcorn. What do they call that? Cracker Jacks box, right?
Right. You don't know what's inside. You got there's a prize there somewhere.
Yeah.
So
Shuva your boss.
So from your unique perspective, Patty, what do you feel like is the mindset of a change maker, and how can we all apply this into thinking using your modalities into our daily lives?
Well, with Changemakers, what I love is that it's all about empowering people. And don't we really want to see change? Leadership is all about change. If we don't have a vision of a future better than the past, what the heck are we doing here for? And whether you're a leader and you have a formal authority, or you're just leading your own life, like directing your career where it really needs to go, putting yourself where your gifts and talents are Shuvad. Like, who wants to go to work every day and not get Shuva? Forget about that, But can we not only do it for ourselves, but bring it to the work environment so that we can shift the world? And I think that your change makers have that opportunity as women, if they believe in themselves and they Shuva themselves, that we can introduce this shift, right? It's all about, we like to think that we're all here at work to make the widgets, make the money. But what if the widgets and the money are really all here for us to be together and to bring our talents and to plug our life force into something that matters? That when you get to this stage of life, that's what really matters in the end, right? And what we see is that when you do Shuva in a team, or the other principles and practices of alignment, you get better results. You wipe out ideas that we shouldn't be wasting our time and energy on, like the 5 initiatives that we don't have time to do, so we're failing on 10, right?
Right.
And you enhance the things that you do want to do. You get more focused, and you're able to row together and amplify each other's contribution because you have a sense of, oh, we are aligned. This is where we're headed. This is what we're really doing, why this matters, instead of like 10 ideas of how to get somewhere. And then you're stuck, well, which idea, and stuck in that amorphous place. The practice of alignment help you get that clarity faster.
Mm, mm. So this I don't want this to be a redundant question, but with your inclusive leadership evolutionist hat on, I love that phrase.
Thank you.
What are a few insights you could offer our listeners who want to move forward and make change in their lives and their careers? I mean, with all of the tools that you bring through the your leadership smarts and art of alignment.
Well, I mean, this may sound so absurd, but I'm just like, go and get the book, because I wrote this book as a field manual. It really is for leaders and organizations. It's not written for organizational development consultants or executive coaches. It's written for the everyday person that has a good idea and they're frustrated because their boss isn't listening to them, or their colleagues or their peers, or maybe they feel like the company is really stuck. Maybe they're working in a company that's been doing something for a long time the same way. It is for change makers. Let me tell you, this book is written for change makers. And I don't know about you, but I, for the longest time, would have feeling that I had an idea, and when nobody shuvaed it, even if it was just to like go, okay, is this a dumb idea or a good idea? Like, give me it, let me know, that it was so easy for those ideas to just go, I don't know if you've heard this. I mean, I think almost everybody has. There's this like joke or saying that, my boss asked me to bring him a rock, so I brought him a rock. And then he said, not this rock, or she said, right? And that's because there's this misalignment. Like, you don't know which rock to bring, right? And so the ability to be able to bring ideas up the chain, take ideas from the chain down to the people that you're trying to bring you the right rock. I mean, there's nothing more frustrating to be on the other side of that, to be the boss and like, dang, I thought I was going to get this rock and I got that one, that happens all the time. Right. So this can really support people making that shift so their ideas have traction, momentum, they get picked up by other people, that you feel that glide that happens when the wheels are aligned, when people are working together in a co-creative fashion instead of debating and, like I said, trading cards and negotiating, and I get mine, you get yours. And none of us really like either of those things, so did that answer your question? I think I wandered off. But
yeah. No, that's great. I mean, it's, there are some very specific steps, change making women and others in teams throughout organizations can take. I mean, and it is all in the spirit of aligning goals and sharing somewhat of the values through the Shuva modality.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm curious, what is, in your view, what is some of the common sabotages that you've seen for high achieving women team members?
Well, I have a whole chapter in my book called The Disruptors to Alignment. And, you have people that show up and they want to get their needs met, and they don't do it in a productive way. So instead of coming forward and saying, hey, this is what I think should happen, or here's my concern, they do these weird things, like they ghost you, they just don't show up at the meetings, or they come and they grandstand, or they conspiratorialize. They go and try to work things offline after the meeting, etc. And so the book has a lot of, there's these 10 disruptors. There's, of course, a million disruptors that can show up. Like 10 is just, some subset. That they give you this approach of how do we, as leaders, tap into what that person really needs and respond to it in a manner that doesn't embarrass them, doesn't make them feel wrong or bad, but actually gets to the heart of it so that we can get back to alignment. And when you think about it, Shuva is a huge part of that. How do I see, hear, understand, right, rather than judge that person, value them. So even though they may disrupt alignment, I value the fact that every voice matters, whether you're doing it in this unproductive way or not, and come to alignment. So I want to give you like a really kind of crazy example, but I'm working with a family office. So it's a wealthy family. They're very influential. Some of them are more higher celebrity status than others. And there's all of these kind of eddies and petty things that happen, and little power struggles. And they're adults, so they've lived their life with a lot of the sibling rivalry and stuff like that. That's pretty normal. Meanwhile, they need to make joint decisions in order to decide what to do with their family's accumulated wealth and the resources that they have, and how to set their family up for future generations. And it's actually set into their governance as their trust that they have to agree on things. Meanwhile, they've lost that ability. So as you can imagine, everybody thinks the other person is a disruptor to alignment. Oh, it's you and your thing. You're not listening to this, or you're trying to drive your agenda, or whatever it is. But the truth is, they all have a common desire for the legacy of their parents and themselves to be something really wonderful and powerful. So I hope that this principles and practices will help them to restore Shuva for one another. And you can only imagine, how impactful that will be. So and that's kind of the bottom line of it. What we see a lot is what I call sh, which means I see ya, I hear ya, I see you and I hear you, but what's the next thing? But, right, but you're wrong, I'm right, blah, blah, blah. This is my bottom line, Sarah. And you got to get out of that. You got to go to the uva, like, now, why is it that this matters to you? And how can I let myself think through what options might actually work for both of us and appreciate you? If we're in this fight together, then there's something we're creating together. How can we appreciate ourselves and each other and be okay with the fact that we may disagree or it may be hard? That doesn't mean you're any less important than I am. And so that's what I'm hoping will come from this work. And that's just one principle. There's, two other principles, and there's these 4 steps and 5 C's that you use when you have a group trying to come to agreement. And
as we wrap up our time together, this has been so incredibly insightful and uplifting and encouraging for the work that you do with teams and how you actually help people transform their lives, their teams at work and at home. Is there anything additional that you'd like to offer to our listeners?
Well, I have put together a special package for your change makers, because I so have a heart, just as you do, for these women. And I want to see them get in there and really shift the work environment for where it needs to go. I think it's up to women, really. We're the ones, you and me. We're doing it right now as we speak, and all these change makers too. So I have curated this package that you can go and get if you go to leadershipsmarts.com/changemakers, and you'll be able to get an alignment toolkit. And in it, we have an executive summary of the book, an actual full-on PDF of the book, and then some other tools and resources you can use, like a 1-page cheat sheet. And hopefully it's enough that they'll just start to see what that could bring to their work. So that hopefully their good ideas will take hold.
That's phenomenal. Thank you very much for that kindness and generosity. I can't wait to take a look and offer it to our Changemaker community, because these are particularly women who are high achieving. They want to make change. They feel like they're sometimes blocked and obstacled because of organizational roadblocks, in many instances in male-dominated industries. And I know that the Art of Alignment, your book, your program, our program, these are tools in a toolbox. I can't have too many. Thank you for that that generosity. And so certainly here, as we wrap up our time together today, Patty, I wanted to give you an opportunity to share what is the best way for our listeners to connect with you.
Well, they should go to leadershipsmarts.com. Like I said, they go to /changemakers, they'll connect with me too, right? We'll be able to see us there, and maybe even tap in if they want to get acquainted call or something like that. We're happy to accept that. I want to say that I feel a lot of hope and optimism. I really hope that your leaders will go. Your change makers will go and grab this information so that they have a little better odds of getting their ideas on the table. And if they want to bring the tools into their organization, then, that they can do that. That's what's really set up. This memorable, like Shuva, as one example, is very easy. You can just say, okay, we're already doing Shuva, but we're going to do it more. So this week we're going to focus on seeing, and next week on hearing. So they really are set up to make it super easy for people to bring, even at, the line level, if they're not senior leaders and stuff like that.
Sure. Sure. Well, this is phenomenal. I can't thank you enough for joining us today for another episode of our Changemakers podcast. It is my heart mission to reach women, professional services women across the globe, to see that there's hope and there's inspiration where, leaders like you and I, Patty, that we spend our work. It is our heart mission to inspire, uplift and mobilize women to get at the table where the things happen, to create the career of their dreams by charting their own course, whatever that may look like. And so I thank you for so generously offering your time and resources here today. And we look forward to seeing what's next for you and in the art of alignment and in your LeadershipSmarts mission.
Thank you so much. The best part of this was just seeing you again.
Oh,
I have so enjoyed every time we get together. Thank you so much for all you do and who you are.
Thank you so much, Patty. So to our Changemakers listeners, thank you. This wraps up another episode of our Changemakers podcast. Of course, you can always reach out to us at changemakers.com. And until next episode, I encourage everyone who's listening to take the time to be the change that you want to see in the world today. That's how it happens, one person at a time. So thank you.